Hello, welcome to the Empower Series podcast. My name is Clifton Johnson. I want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world. And today we're going to talk about a topic that is dear to my heart that gets very little attention, and it's men's mental health. So Men's Mental Health Awareness Month is in June, along with Father's Day and Juneteenth and everything else. But it's very little attention is given to it. But today we're going to talk about that with our honorary Empower Series licensed professional counselor, Karlos Lyons. But before we get started, just want to let you know that everything we do on the Empower Series is intended to inform. So this is for educational purposes only. It does not replace, it's not a replacement for therapy or any kind of medical advice. So I'm going to read this. If you or someone you know is struggling with their mental health or experiencing any type of crisis, please reach out for immediate support. You can call or text 988, which is the Suicide Crisis Lifeline, anytime in the United States, or you can access their website, which is 988lifeline.org. Now, we're going to get started, man. So no fluff, no big introduction. We just need to dig in and welcome our man, Karlos, back to the Empower Series podcast.
I appreciate you for having me back, Mr. Clifton.
Yeah, dude, you add value all the time, right? Yeah. So, we were just talking before we started recording this about in the month of June, there's a lot going on, right? And also when you look at mental health, you have Mental Health Awareness Month for everybody in May. Mm-hmm. Then you got, mental health awareness for men in June.
Correct.
And then in July, you've got
BIPOC,
right?
Yeah.
And
mental health awareness. Yeah.
And explain what BIPOC is.
So BIPOC is an acronym that stands for Black, Indigenous, People of Color. So the full spectrum of persons that represent a non-white demographic in mental health spaces.
Yeah. So again, we're going to talk about men's health, but I just want to let you know that every day is an awareness day for mental health, right?
Absolutely.
Men, women, or anybody in between.
Right.
So I was just reading some statistics. So I'm going to shoot some statistics out that I think are kind of shocking, maybe shocking for you. But 40% of men surveyed have never spoken to anyone about their mental health.
Wow.
That is crazy.
That is crazy.
Now, only 36% of psychological therapy patients are men, which indicates that there's a significant gap in mental health utilization or mental health care utilization. And then almost 22% of men, almost a quarter actually, wouldn't feel comfortable speaking about their mental health issues to their general practitioners or even a professional. And they often worry about how it's going to be a waste of time. So I can relate to that as well. Another statistic, 49% of men feel more depressed than they admit to other people. And it would take some thought of suicide or harming somebody before they would seek out any kind of help. Really? Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, man, you're in a profession that is on the front line of seeing a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And in this podcast, I want to really just break the myth that talking about mental health is a sign of weakness.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was, as you were reading those stats, I thought firstly about the fact that a lot of this has to do with misinformation or miseducation in some sort. And we're having to demystify for a lot of people, specifically men, on what this profession is about and what healthcare is about. I think just in general, I'll speak from I know we're speaking about men in general, but I'll speak from a Black context specifically as well. Okay. I know for our community, there has always been some hesitation when it comes to healthcare and the medical profession historically, especially here in the United States, just because of abuse or misuse of the Black body, the Black mind for experimentation, exploitation of some sort. Right, so that, along with accessibility or lack of accessibility, basically being labeled in some way or feeling like when you go to a doctor, they're going to try to shove medication into your hands. I think a lot of that has caused the hesitation and the fear that a lot of folks have about going to seek help. And then when you talk about it from a male perspective, just in general, whether it be a Black man or otherwise, men in general feel this pressure, as you've already stated, to be the leader, to be able to hold everything in, to be able to sustain the family, be a source of stability and strength and resilience. And if I'm doing all of that, I may not have the bandwidth or the time to be going to go sit down and talk to somebody about what I'm dealing with.
Yeah. Just deal with it, right?
And just deal with it. Just handle it. Yeah.
So I know that one of the things that my daughter would always ask me is, how do I feel? How do you feel, Dad? And I would always tell her what I think. You know, I said, Dad, okay, let me define what an emotion is, right?
Right.
Like, what are your emotions? And I never really realized how much I just discount my feelings. Because, you know, you just got to get it done, right? It doesn't matter how you feel, right? It doesn't change the situation. But giving that some attention and realizing that we are human beings with feelings.
Absolutely.
You know, is important.
And your emotions are not in opposition or antithetical to your mental health. They are a part of your mental health. A lot of times we look at the mind as like the big deal, right? Like your thoughts, your thinking. I would venture to say that we should take a bottom-up approach versus a top-down approach to mental health. And the emotional state of our bodies, right, really is what brings the fruit of how we think.
So interesting. Tell me more. What do you mean by the emotional state of our
This is
bodies?
more of what we call a somatic approach to mental health. So top-down meaning the utilization of the body attunement, understanding what your body is feeling, just the way it feels physically,
okay,
but also emotionally. You know, when you have an emotion,
it has a physical effect.
It has a physical effect, it has a somatic effect. So if you're anxious, you might have the feelings in your stomach. You might have sweaty palms. You know, your eyes might dilate. You might have tremors of some sort. You might feel lightheaded. All right, that's an emotion.
Okay.
And then there's the thoughts that come with that. I'm afraid, I'm in danger. This might be happening. I might lose my job next week. How am I going to pay these bills? That's the thought.
No doubt. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the emotion is all of that other stimuli that you're experiencing.
So let's talk about that, man. So you know, this is good. People are going to be listening to this, watching this, whatever. Yeah. But I really want this to be not just something that you listen to and go, yeah, I agree with that. I want like take something, pause it if you're hearing something, and practice something. So how would you coach somebody to become more aware and cognitive of their feeling of their body and how that's connecting to thought? Because I want to do that. Actually, I want to do that right now.
Right.
So yeah, how do you do that?
Firstly, we need to slow down. As a society, we are moving all the time and we are not slowing down. So mindfulness, I always go back to this. It's one of my favorites, right? But mindfulness is this idea of being presently aware of where I am right now. So being aware of your body right now as you sit in that chair across from me, as you're using the pen, as you're writing, or as you're using the microphone to talk, like being aware of your body. What do I sense in my physical body right now? Is there any level of sensation, tingling sensations, discomfort somewhere in my body? Just that practice of just tuning in to what I feel, you know, exactly, like my lungs expanding and inhaling, exhaling, all of that, my shoulders, if I feel any tension anywhere in my body, really just bringing attention to what the body is feeling moment to moment and slowing down. That's half the battle. And then the rest is being able to articulate what I feel. If we could learn to do that and master that, that's what we call body attunement.
Okay. Do you actually do that in a session?
Yes. So if I'm working with a client that is dealing with some level of anxiety or stress, because stress management is really big for a lot of men, right? Dealing with all the societal pressure, work, bills, their woman, their children, all that kind of stuff, right? They come in.
If you only knew, right?
And so they come in, they're so tense. I've even had men where I've done an exercise where I say, hey, let's just do a couple of rounds of breathing in, inhaling, exhaling through, like breathing in through the nose, exhaling through the mouth, trying to relax the shoulders, trying to wind down, kind of melt into your seat. But what you'll be surprised at when I would do that, some guys would be like, man, that felt really uncomfortable. It felt uncomfortable to try to relax, right? I'm so tightly wound up. And so what came out was high emotion, like crying or even more tension, like, whoa, like I'm so unused to doing this. And they had to get into a space where doing that felt comfortable to actually unwind their body. But they're so used to being in a heightened state of tension that everything feels wound up inside of their bodies.
That is crazy, dude.
Yeah.
So
It felt foreign to him.
with a client like that,
Mm-hmm.
you go through the session, you talk about a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of homework would you give somebody like that?
So a practice that I often share with my clients is first thing in the morning, don't grab your phone. Don't start scrolling or looking at the news or your stocks or all that. Just sit up in your bed and take a few deep breaths. Just sit there for 2 to 3 minutes and just take some deep inhales and exhales. The morning time is probably one of the quietest, stillest moments of your day before you get busy. And just sit for a minute. Just sit with yourself. Thoughts might come up, right? Like, oh, I got this going on. Okay,
Don't act on it. Don't act on it.
Don't act on it right now. We're just going to let that pass. Right now, we're going to sit with our bodies for a minute before we go about our day, and just sit and make that a part of your morning practice.
Yeah. So I don't do that, but I do notice sometimes, like I reach on the phone and kind of look at text messages I've lost, I've missed,
absolutely,
or whatever. Like,
absolutely.
What's going on today in my calendar?
We're so connected all the time with everything.
So one thing I can do is actually put my phone not so close to my bed, right? So when I wake up, the phone's not within reach.
Yeah, I actually turn mine off and it's in another room.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so we're getting some practical steps here.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing I do is I wake up and I breathe. First off, I thank God because I say to myself, I'm winning. I'm winning because I woke up.
Absolutely.
I'm winning. And then I stretch because my old body, it's like, man, I remember when I was so young, I was so limber. It's like nowadays, it's like, where's this pain coming from?
10 man.
So I just do a little bit of a stretching, and that makes a difference. Man. If I just stop there, it just makes a difference. Otherwise, when I get up, I'm walking like pop locking or something.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Crazy.
And I get it. Like, so somebody, I kind of pick up on, like, somebody might be thinking, well, I got kids and I got this going on, I understand that. But there is at some point in your day, you have 5 minutes, right? Where you can, if it's not first thing in the morning, is it like right before you go into the office, you know, before you clock in for the day? Is it on your lunch break? Is it in the evening when you put the kids to bed? That you don't have 5 minutes that you can sit with yourself and just take some deep breaths and really tune into the body. Once you do that, it becomes more routine, and you're just noticing your body, you're noticing yourself throughout the entire day.
So the first thing is become more presently aware.
And slow down.
Slowing down. Breathing. Stretching,
absolutely.
Being grateful, right?
Yeah. And those of us that live in cities like Dallas and other larger markets where we commute, some of us commute an hour one way or, more
crazy,
in traffic, that's adding stress to your body.
Yeah.
That activity alone is adding stress to your body, or can add stress to your body.
It's not even noticed, right?
It's not even noticed. It's not even noticed. Or like, I got this meeting coming up, I got that, So you're always in a push-pull, like tension of the next thing. And so that's why I'm saying, if we start to slow down, and that is a trickle effect into everything from what I'm putting into my body, what am I drinking, what am I taking in, what am I ingesting,
how am I caring for it, like
how am I caring for
stretching.
it? Yes, absolutely.
It's interesting because someone told me that your self-care is a reflection of love.
Yes, absolutely.
How do we love ourselves? And
absolutely.
Man, I'm not loving myself, man, enough.
We all could do better at loving ourselves more, right? Yeah. And I think for a lot of men, the tension between my responsibility to my family and to those that have expectations of me, they're depending on me. And that is important too. So our love and our care for those that are around us that really do depend on us, we don't want to undermine that as well. But if you are pouring from an empty cup, right, you're running on fumes, right? There has to be a point where you go to the fill up station for yourself.
Man, here's the thing that keeps running in my mind. It keeps running in my mind. The fact that 40% of men have never spoken to anybody. 49% of men feel more depressed than they let people know in their lives. I was just telling about a friend of mine who committed suicide, who, I get emotional when I think about this. Like, we have a circle of friends, but he was experiencing some stuff and he didn't tell us. And so I started thinking, man, I'm experiencing some stuff. I don't be telling everybody, right? Because figure they don't want to hear. Like, everybody got some shit going on, right?
Right.
So you might be winning, but you're struggling at the same time, right? And so nobody wants to be around somebody who is always talking about something negative. But you don't have to always talk about it, but you got to at least acknowledge it, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to do that. And so what I'm going to do on this podcast right now, and I'm going to do this because I was going to counseling with my daughter.
Mm.
And I was trying to help her do all this kind of stuff, right? Trying to help other people. And talking about, trying to help someone from an empty cup. The counselor took a break and said, look, we've been talking about your daughter for 45 minutes. What about you?
Mm.
And so when you think about me and my life, I'm just give you a snapshot, right? So in 2023, I was diagnosed with cancer. And so prostate cancer. So I went through that whole process towards the end of the year. In 2024, right before I started my radiation treatment, my employer said, hey, you should find a job that's remote. So we're going to let you go. Right before I started my radiation treatment, which is illegal from a perspective. So I'm going through a lawsuit with them. Then our funder for the Empower series for the past 15 years, there's been a change in leadership and a change in the allocation of resources. So in 2025, we're getting zero funding from them. And so not having the type of employment that I usually have, not having the funding from my main supporter of the Empower series, going through this cancer journey and taking hormone therapy, which basically for men reduces your testosterone to zero, because testosterone is the food for prostate cancer, right? So you see those commercials about low testosterone, like, hey, take these. I'm like, I got zero, bro. And so along with that comes hot flashes. So I'll be sitting here, all of a sudden I'll start glycerine. Women have no sympathy for me, but I have hot flashes, low libido, low energy, depression. Like what I'm noticing, the way I explain it is that, when you drive, it's easy to stay between the lines, right? You just drive and it's easy. I feel that I am exerting a tremendous amount of effort to stay focused on the stuff that I need to do. I'm noticing thoughts are capturing my attention more, like limiting thoughts or self-doubt, where I used to just bust through that and used to do things. It's like, it's just taking entirely too much effort to do that. So I say that to say this. No matter what you see, the fact we're doing the Empower series, I'm blessed. I've got collaborators and community partners. I got you coming on to the podcast. There's a lot of great things going on in my life, and I am literally winning because I have a level of health. Because when I look at other people who are challenged with their health issues, I'm still blessed, right? I'm still walking. I'm still able to think, all this stuff. So I'm definitely winning. But what's unseen are the things I just mentioned to you.
Yeah, that's a lot.
People don't know that, and I think everybody. So I may have mentioned something that somebody else is dealing with, right? Or somebody else feels this way. The fact that I can say that, and this is going global, tells you that please talk to somebody about that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think when you mentioned about your friend and he didn't have the, I guess maybe the feeling of safety or courage to share that with you all, or maybe he thought he had it figured out. I think about that often as well with clients because the safe space, we can't underestimate the idea of having safe space. Right. And how does one establish that kind of rapport with people in their life? Because what you mentioned earlier is like people don't want to hear that all the time, or talk about
how you
what
doing.
I'm
doing
exactly.
Blessed,
See, we have this
false.
Right? We have this false joy, this false happiness. Like when people ask us how we're doing, we're like, oh yeah, da 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 da. Yeah. And if you say, oh, I'm not having a good day, then you're like a Debbie Downer and don't want to hear that.
And we yucking
like,
my parade, right?
Yeah. So there's like a fine line, right? There is definitely a space where you should be able to have somebody in your community, in your sphere of influence, your friends, etc., that you feel like you can have safety. But if that is not established, then that's where my profession comes, front and center. Is like there are a lot of people that just don't feel like they have that ability to do that. Maybe because the people in their life don't know how to support them, or they think they don't know how to support them. Mm-hmm. Therefore, they're just like, what I do with that information? Like, you need to go see somebody.
Thank you for watching our content. I hope our content is inspiring you and empowering you to make a difference in your life and take that next step to achieve your goal. Empower Series is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is dedicated to positively impacting the world by inspiring people to thrive in every area of their life. We do that by delivering hope, inspiration, education, and more importantly, connecting you to resources to help you take that next step. To do that, we need your support. You can give your support in several ways. One is by texting GIVE or DONATE to 214-225-6337. That is 214-225-6337. If you text the words GIVE or DONATE to that number, you'll receive a secure text back where you can make a donation of any dollar amount, either one time or monthly. And whatever contribution you make, you are part of a team that is helping us inspire more lives. So please be a supporter. You can also be a member of our YouTube channel to support us that way. But whatever you do, do the top 3. Get what you're supposed to get from the Empower Series, share it with somebody else, and let us know how we're impacting your life by going to our website, www.empowerseries.com, and clicking in the top right-hand corner a survey and letting us know how we've impacted your life and how we can be of greater service to you. Until we meet again, be empowered and inspired to thrive. Now I understand when women are complaining about men trying to fix stuff, right? Like, we just listen. I'm not asking you to solve my problems.
Yeah.
Just hear me out.
Yeah.
It's like, now I know how that feels.
You know how it feels like, I don't need you to fix it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, just, and so there's a book that I recommend called The Lost Art of Listening.
Yes.
The link to that's going to be underneath the video. My daughter gave that to me because we were in a situation where she didn't feel like she did not have the experience of being heard by me. And so when I look at any challenge that people are having with other people, man, it's so selfless. I think it's selfish to be just to listen. And no matter what I want to say, don't say it.
Yeah.
The only thing that needs to be said after someone expresses something to them is the affirmation or confirmation of what they said, or clarifying questions about what they said. Yeah. So the second thing, right? I would say being presently aware, breathing, being self-care. The way you get listened to is by listening to others.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And would you believe that probably 80%, I'm just going to give that as a percentage, like 80% of my work is what you just said: empathetic listening, therapeutic rapport, reflecting back what I hear you say, process comments, clarifying questions. That in the beginning is, and even through the process of working with clients long term. So what I'm hearing you say is X, Y, and Z. I'm reflecting back what they're saying because I'm giving them a mirror. I'm holding up a mirror to them. It's like, this is your process. This is your mental health journey. And don't get me wrong, like, I don't just sit there the whole time and not give them any recommendations or
But there's a time for that.
But there's a time for that because people, a lot of it's like they just need to be listened to. They just need to be listened to.
And it's almost like fertilizing the soil because, I'm thinking about a conversation I had with my cousin lately, and it wasn't as effective as it could have been, primarily because I wasn't listening. Yeah. And I was wondering, so Clifton, did you listen, or were you more concerned about making your point?
Yeah, because a lot of us listen only to
make a point.
Reply, right?
And so going back to what you're saying is that the way you fertilize the ground for any kind of open dialogue is to just listen. Commentary is not required. A friend told me that the more I feel like I want to say something, the greater the greater the reason I shouldn't. Just listen. And what that does for the other person, it provides them the answer themselves. Because we all have it. We all have it inside. We're not slowing down. We're not being self-aware enough to really process our thoughts, our feelings, and know what's right for us, because nobody has the answer outside, in my opinion.
Yes, absolutely. Right. Thank you for sharing that part about slowing down. I think that's what leads us to, because even in my field, there is a solution-focused approach to therapy. Like, we can be solution-focused. Brief solution-focused therapy is a big deal. And that's all about like trying to help the client arrive to their understanding of what is my desired outcome and what steps do I need to take to get there, right? And part of that can be processing things. But I think by and large, as a society, we're too hurried. And so we want to fix it so I can get back to, hustling and grinding and, turning up on the gram and looking like I got everything together.
Exactly.
So we don't suffer well.
So how do you address this? How do you address the fact that most men feel like this dialogue we're having or going somewhere and being heard is a waste of time. Because the reason I say that is because I was recommending that to someone, and then someone said, okay, so let's say they tell me this, then what do I do with it? Like, I think the premise of that question was, so it's a waste of time. Like me going there and knowing what I already know is not really worth it. So how do you address the fact that having a sit down with a counselor for the first time to talk about some feelings, some stuff that's going on inside of us to slow down is not a waste of time?
Well, first they have to come to the place, and some of this language will come from like addictions counseling, right? The change process. If you are unaware that there needs to be a change, then you will have no desire to change. So as long as there is, no awareness of the fact that change needs to take place, then it will appear as a waste of time. But until you get to the point of you feel sick and tired of being sick and tired, you will start to see. And you mentioned earlier about like, why does it have to wait till crisis? Well, we do this in other parts of our life, right? Like we wait till we start having the physical ailments pop up.
Of not eating well.
Of not eating well until we have to go to the doctor and oop, you got X, Y, and Z going on. So now they want to, go through that process. It's the same thing with our mental health as well. A lot of us wait till it's the mental breakdown. We wait till I'm having the panic attacks. I'm having all of these physical responses to the stress that necessitates me saying, okay, and I've had that happen many times, like it gets to that point. And so, hey, however you got to get there, you get there, but it's best if you look at it long-term, how you look at your car. Like if you want your car to run well, if you want your car to have proper, alignment and oil and all that kind of stuff, you go do those routine tune-ups, checkups on that vehicle, right? And the same thing for your body, which is going to carry you through the rest of your life, right? That's an important part of you having proper holistic health.
Yeah, so you go to the dentist every 6 months.
Absolutely.
You go for an annual checkup at least every year.
Yes.
Get certain things done like your PSA.
And that doesn't mean, exactly. And do I go to the dentist every week? No. I go for those things I need to do. And that could be the same with your therapist. You don't have to, I think people think I have to be with a shrink, for this long period of time. And, we're unraveling a lot of things. It can be, that's why I said brief solution focused work is good. It may be 3 months. It may be 6 months. It could be a year. And we may not be meeting every single week. We might meet once or twice a month, just depending on the severity of the issue. And we may start off with a higher frequency in the beginning and taper off as we go. And then once you feel like you have the tools, the resilience, and work with what we've already worked on or talked through, then you go and live your life. And if you need to come back, hey, come back.
So you talk about awareness, man. It's like, so there's so many different areas that we're not aware that we need to change. Whether it's in our relationships with the people who are most significant with us, if it's in our money, our physical body, our mental health. It's like that makes a good point, because if you're not aware that you need to change, you're not going to change. And my brother who was homeless from 1988 to 1994 and addicted to crack didn't decide to change until he decided to change. And one of the things that he tells me all the time, he says, Clifton, people are going to change when they want to. People are going to change. So also, we have a producer here, right? Jose, what are you saying, man? Talk to me real quick so I can bring up what you want to say. I got to look at he sent me a message, so I'm going to see what he says in the message. Good question. He says, do you think people should go to therapists just to vent? Maybe they just need to talk. Would a therapist be a good option for that?
Absolutely. Venting, I think, and even in the question, what I pick up on is like a negative connotation to the idea
of value of venting.
Of venting.
Yeah.
We have to get stuff off our chest. We have to let things out. Now, the word that we use, we don't necessarily say vent as much. We probably say process. You probably hear a therapist say, let's process, right? Let's process this out. We're in the processing phase, right? And so however you want to semantically call it, you're getting it off your chest. It's coming out. Because what does all that stuff that's inside of you do, right? It creates disease. If you keep it all bound up in your body, you keep all the stress bottled up inside of you, you start having ulcers and you start having back pain and you start having tension in your shoulders, and then it can create disease in the body in different ways. It proliferates in some way.
So
you got to get it out.
I like your first comment because the word venting is like, you just venting, man. Like you go to meetings, we don't want to vent. What's the solutions, right? But to your point, letting things out and talking things out is a way of processing. Number one. Mostly when we vent to someone we shouldn't be venting about, right? So definitely we shouldn't be venting to the person that we have the issue with, right? Because then it's going to be, they're defensive, they're not listening, they're not letting you get it out.
Unless we're trying to work through our conflict resolution skills.
There you go.
Now,
yeah, but we need to go to a professional.
Right.
But here's the other thing though. So most times when we're venting or complaining about a situation, we tend to be complaining to somebody who can't help, right? They can't help. But going to a professional and to your point, venting or processing, getting things out so you can talk it through, very valuable. But I think that's a good comment, Jose. I appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You texting that to me, man.
Can I add to that too? Yeah. I think with that idea of venting, when they come and they start, right? This is the first time they've ever had a space to do this. You're really surprised at how often people start that process and it leads to other things that they just have not addressed. Stuff that's been in there 20, 30 years. And then it leads to other family systems issues. Like I always go down to, like, I'm really big on root cause analysis, right? So there's this higher level presenting problem. And then we start drilling down to what's at the core, what's at the root. Where is this stemming from? Not in every case, but what I'm saying in some cases is family stuff, family system, the way they have learned things. Then there could be childhood trauma of some sort. If it's stress related, obviously we go back to, well, why are you so stressed? What is at the root of the stress that I'm experiencing in my job? Like I feel like the need to please everyone, or I have a desire to be at this phase in my career because my pinnacle is to be a millionaire by 30, 35. And so where is that pressure come? Like, that's what I mean by that, like getting down to deeper root cause understanding of these higher level presenting issues.
So a thought came to mind when you were talking about that. It's like, I really want to get more engagement in the live chat and in the comments about what are the hindrances of men having those conversations. It's like, I even think about myself. So like I said before, I can go to a counselor when there's an issue between me and somebody else, but just me, myself, right? There's opportunity for that. And I have to be honest, I haven't really given that the time that I need to give it for some reason. And so when I look at some of my reasons, me being, being on Cobra, right? And the income from, the nonprofit, from my business, whatever, it's not coming in as much. I feel like I got to be on my grind. I don't have time really to sit down and talk to somebody. For some people, it might be a financial issue, right? Because we were talking about your practice and you taking insurance. And then for those people who don't have insurance, what are some of the resources out there? And so there's some resources underneath the video that we'll have. But one of the resources we talked about recently, I want to pull that up, was something that is, I would say not that many people know about it. It was what was it you said?
MetroCare?
There you go, MetroCare.
Yeah, MetroCare.
So MetroCare, why am I not able to find it? Here it is, MetroCare Services. So as the local mental health authority for Dallas County, and they have a MetroCare probably for other counties as well, right? MetroCare offers a broad array of services for people with mental health challenges and developmental disabilities. This includes outpatient clinics, community-based support, primary care services for veterans, pharmacies, and housing. They provide services to any Dallas County resident, regardless of their ability to pay. So many people don't know that, right? And there's a ton of other resources that are, again, underneath the video. So what I'm saying is that, what are some of the reasons, man, besides the stereotype of men just being, I don't need any help, finances, it's like we're so busy on the grind. How do we break through that and create an awareness that we need some help?
So I'm going to try to take I want to be very sensitive and also just try to take a more well-rounded approach to the question, other than just those obvious things that you just shared. I think there are some cultural factors that lead to what we would consider to be a hindrance to mental health, seeking mental health services, should I say it that way. I think culturally for a lot of men, and I'm going to speak specifically for Black and brown men, because that's the context that I feel most aligned with and understand the most. I think there are cultural factors. We turn to coping mechanisms that are our more acceptable or social way of dealing with problems. And so I've seen it where it is going to be, substance use, right? Whether it's smoking a lot of weed, drinking a lot of alcohol, maybe getting into a little bit of gambling, and we don't mind working out, or we don't mind going to the gym, right? That's a big one. But then we may have aggression issues, right? So they don't necessarily mean to be just this mean-spirited, surly kind of person, but that's more of acceptable emotion to express. Like, I'm angry, or I'm upset, or I'm tense, right? And so we wear that as a badge of honor sometimes, right? I would say other things is we have other spaces that we've historically used in our communities as places to go talk, like the barbershop or church, or religion in general. Those are not bad things. Yeah. So I do not want to say that those are not safe spaces that we should indulge in. But I'm also saying that depending on what messages you get in those spaces, or how to deal with the issue, some of it can be helpful, some of it can be unhelpful. And here is this other avenue, the mental health services going to a professional, a clinician, that may not be as accessible, or they don't think that they should go there. They should go to these other places, to my homeboys, to the preacher at the church, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But what I think was going to be more helpful to bridge those gaps is if those that are in the mental health spaces have a clearer understanding of the context these men are coming from, the context that those individuals are come from, and can kind of help them see an integration between the two. So I really pride myself on understanding my cultural context, understanding the world of the barbershop, the world of the church, the world of, just being in there with your boys and in the different settings that we try to find ourselves in to feel closer connected, right? I feel like I take a pride in understanding those spaces. And when they come to my space as a mental health clinician, I can use that language. I can bridge those gaps so they can see the integration. And then sometimes it's not them coming to me. Sometimes it's me going to them in the sense of community outreach.
Right. Or doing a podcast
a podcast like this. There has to be ways where we bridge those gaps and close those gaps of understanding of how this works. But if you don't have culturally competent therapists, then it's going to be really hard to connect with a certain demographic of men.
Yeah, most definitely. And you mentioned something about the vices that we turn to. And we talked about this before, where approximately 20% of men in the United States abuse alcohol, during their lives, often as a coping mechanism for underlying mental health issues. Men are almost 2 times more likely to binge drink than women. And 3 times more likely to die from alcohol abuse, which is my father passed away of that. Let's see, what is it? Because, when you think about this, one of the things that Jose and I were talking about earlier is that, we're talking about mental health in general right now, but there's a rise, right? I know there's a statistic about that. So I know that male suicide rates has increased each year since the year 2000. So talk about, what do you think the underlying reason of the increase in stress, the increase in mental health issues and the problem nationwide?
Well, first of all, I want to speak to the fact that when I came into this profession, it was at the height of COVID. And so this mental health conversation has just taken such a surge in a positive direction to bring awareness to stuff that has probably been here for centuries, right? Decades. Yeah. And so COVID really was a highlight for a lot of people to start talking about. It just became a hot topic, and it's still as a hot topic right now. So there's some generational things, some intergenerational things that I think for men or women of a certain demographic, a certain generation, they have just been in a space of not talking. And then now we have this surge of more conversation around it.
So the stress is already there. It's just like it's becoming more aware.
It's becoming aware of the stress. So it may not
as if it's an increase.
Right. It may not actually be that it's just this higher uptick. but it's always been there. We just never really like had the information to talk about it.
Or people
to show
not talked about it because of the stigma.
Because of stigma, exactly.
Okay.
And there's a resource by a doctor. Her name is Dr. Rita Walker. It's called the Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health, where she gives a whole chapter or section of her book talking about suicide rates amongst Black people, and just where her research has come from. So I would defer to people like her for more in-depth understanding of like suicidality and suicide rates and like why we see that uptick. But also too, I think from the work that I have done in the last 5 years, which is crazy, already 5 years in. Time flies. The stress is related to finances a lot of the time. And just like this idea of keeping up with all of the social benchmarks that we have of like success and climbing the corporate ladder and paying for all this stuff. Like life has gotten really expensive for millions of Americans.
Like to play costs money now, where when we were kids, we can go out and play for free.
Yeah.
Or even, not to put light to this, but a friend of mine was talking about dating. Right.
Exactly. Things like the dating pool is different.
He's meeting a girl for the first time. It's like, okay, hey, where do you want to go? And she's mentioning, I want to go out to eat. I want to go to the movies. It's everything that costs money. It's like, what about for a walk? Like, well, what's that all about? Like, why is it that everything that we do has some kind of financial transaction to it, as opposed to just, hey, let's just go to the park or let's go on a hike. Let's do something that's just not gonna cost money.
Absolutely. Yeah. So finances highlights for many people. I'm not successful. I don't have a glamorous career. Therefore, I'm not worthy. I'm not enough in some way. Outside of that, there's just in social circles for suicidality, isolation. So another thing that COVID brought up is more isolation. We've become more isolated because we are siloed with our technology. We don't, like you said, the engagement that we had maybe 20 years ago is different, the way we engage with people. And when you go to a room now, you see everybody on their phone, right? Like instead of like us actually having real dialogue and talking, connecting with people, now we have the distraction of our tablet or our phone to be able to like be in these little worlds. And so we have these parasocial relationships through technology, which we're actually not really connected to the person on the screen, but we think we are. And now we have social media, which those are not necessarily always what they seem. You know, people can have 1 million followers, but you don't know all those people. You have 9,000 friends, but you're not really friends with all those people. So
I love that parasocial relationships, man. That's crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah. So I think that's a contributing factor to suicidality as well. It's like isolation, lack of community. Lack of real connection with other people. There's always a sense of I don't feel worthy. I don't feel enough, because I have clients like that who are dealing with that. I don't feel like I'm enough. I don't feel worthy. Man. I don't have a strong sense of community that really speaks into me, that really I can identify with, that leads to that. And so again, that's all societal based. That's all based on what you're doing within the wider context.
You mentioned something I want to touch on, because we talked about this as well. One of the biggest causes of mental health issues with men, work is 32%. Finances is 31%.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Health is 23%.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're right, keeping up with the Joneses. But what's interesting is that we're talking about this. There's a concept of what it is to be a man.
There is.
Let's talk about that. So I'm sure you've had people come in with their own perspective. What is, in your experience, in your counseling sessions, what do you feel like the prevailing definition of a man is, and where it needs to be corrected? Yeah,
and I also want to say, before I answer that question, I am not one of those people that wants to emasculate manhood, or like in some way like make it feminized and some, I think there should be a healthy balance in these conversations, because I think the pendulum can swing so far, and we just like demonize everything about, strength and resilience and courage and bravery, which all of those can be virtues that men can embody, but then also having high emotional intelligence. That can also be it.
Right.
And knowing when and where to use my emotions effectively. So in regards to the idea of the definition of manhood or masculinity, a lot of men, the prevailing idea is protector and being a provider. It's specifically when it comes to their relationship with the opposite sex or having a family. I need to be able to physically protect for this person or these individuals. I need to be able to provide for them. And again, going back to that cost of living thing,
right? Financially,
man, that looks different for many people. And so, depending on the type of woman you with or whoever your partner is, those expectations can be different for different couples, for different people. So it's like, is it like a 50-50 split where I help pay some of the bills, you help pay the bills? Or are you supposed to be taking care of everything? I'm supposed to just be, this person's supposed to be like the housewife or whatever and taking care of the kid.
Yeah. So I was listening to some women talk about they went out on it wasn't a date, but they were clubbing, right? And they were talking about what other guys did. And she said, yeah, I'm not going to date anybody that's not making as much as I'm making.
Yeah, like 6 figures or more. And
right.
All this kind of stuff.
Like, look, this one brother said, look, if you don't have a 6-pack or a 6-figure, you're not
You're not. You're not.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not cutting it, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think a lot of men feel like, so being a provider, being a protector, that are the main two things I would say for masculinity. And then also just being able to deal with stuff. The woman can be the more emotional one. I'm not supposed to be emotional. I'm not supposed to feel in the same way or talk as much. So the strong, silent type is an archetype that we, deal with as men as well. Like, I need to be the strong, silent type. And there's a lot of insecurity for a lot of men if I'm not 6'5", got 6 figures, 6-pack.
6-pack.
There are a lot of insecure men out here who they see these examples, or they see the guys, they see the celebrities, right? Yeah. That's another thing. Like, what kind of celebrity guy I want to be if I don't have this look.
Yeah, man, but I think you make a point, man, because just a little bit about my childhood. My father was definitely an alcoholic, and he died of a stroke caused by alcoholism. But when you look at how he lived his life and the sacrifice that he's made, came out of high school in the 50s, right? So Jim Crow, not a lot of opportunities for a black man out of high school. So he went to the military, came out of the military in Los Angeles and just worked, right? Had a family, raised 3 kids. And in his work ethic, he worked for the post office for over 36 years. But then he also worked as a janitor in the Los Angeles Independent School District to pay for us to go to private school from K to 12. So, and he was really involved in the Boy Scouts. He was involved in, the booster clubs in our school and our sports. He was like the model parent when it came to providing, right? And working hard to provide, like work and finances and support. And, I saw him and my mom in a loving relationship. They go out marriage retreats every year with the church, right? And so he was just a good model, but he wasn't a celebrity, right? He actually dealt with something because he was drinking a lot, right? So there's something deep inside him that was not fulfilling. Maybe all of the challenges he had to put up with, maybe kids not being appreciative of his sacrifice. But you're to a point, we all come out of that with now an image of what it's like to be a man, right? And we need to really be open to rethinking that, right? Yeah. Especially if it's not working for us, right? If it's not working for us mentally, health-wise, stress-wise, relationship-wise, right? If we're going through relationships, like, okay, it's not the person we're with, it's probably more about us, right?
Yeah, and I would say, like, can we do those things? Can we still strive to want to be provider, protector, leader, and also be emotionally aware, emotionally attuned, emotionally intelligent, offload when we need to, delegate when we need to, have healthy boundaries, find healthy community, go talk to someone when we need to, get back to being Superman, right? Yeah. Can Superman and Clark Kent have a nice symbiotic relationship? Can I both go out there and save the world and then just go be a regular Joe as well?
And so as you were saying that, it's like, okay, just add more to a man's plate, right? It's like, but what we're saying is that the first thing to do is stops by being presently aware, slowing down, right? Some other questions that I think are really good to raise because people are probably watching this. What are 3 things you would say men should do. Things like, just some examples. Clean your house and become more organized. Because sometimes with this disorganization, your environment, it just adds stress. So your environment sometimes is a reflection of what's going on inside your mind, right? So what do you think are the 3 things men should do in addition to being presently aware in the morning and disconnecting from technology in the very beginning?
Mm-hmm.
What other things are good things for men to do?
Can you ask the question one more time, just make sure I understand it?
So what are 3 things that men should do to really continue to be, like we talk about being presently aware in the morning, right? The comment here was sometimes our physical environment is a reflection of our mental state, right? And so should cleaning your physical environment. That should be the first thing you should do, right? But that's easier said than done. But if there were 3 things that men should do to start along the path of becoming more aware of their mental health and doing something to really improve it, what might it be? Cleaning your environment is just an example.
Yeah. So the present awareness you mentioned, cleaning up your space. I'd like to just say, having some mental check-in points, right? Where I know there are a lot of guys that don't really like the idea of writing things down, like journaling.
Okay.
But so if that sounds too, sappy for you, like having a journal by your bedside or something like that, you can also, I would say, just have, after your morning, woosah moment, like you can get your phone and do a voice memo of some sort and just start checking in with yourself, or have some check-in questions. And I actually have some that I've used in the past as like a way to say, hey, this is how you can check in with yourself. Let me just see if I can pull them up.
And so as you're pulling that up, are those check-in questions that you use yourself, or do you use for your clients? Or, where are these coming from?
Yeah, I've used for myself and I've used with clients before. And they're really simple. They're not like overly complex. The other things that I would say would be related to, honestly, the other aspect of our mental health, which is being how we take care of our bodies and our sleep. And I know that I preach that quite often, but it's really important. Let's see, where are the questions? All right, so the mental health check-in questions I have: how am I feeling on a scale from 1 to 10? Like, this is meaning like if it's stress related, 10 being a high level of stress, 1 being no stress at all. Some, like the lady I mentioned, Dr. Rita Walker, calls it psychological fortitude. Like, what's my psychological fortitude right now? All right. Do I have any tension in my body that I need to address? Right. And so looking at that tension in my body, what's off? What stress am I carrying, and how can I release that stress in positive ways? Do I have a support system? Who is in my support system? What environment makes me feel at peace? And in addition to those questions, as like just potential check-in questions that you could sit down and write out in a journal or do a voice memo or something to yourself, I would say some of the other things that I would suggest would be how you use your body, like moving your body. Stress is released through cortisol into the body. And again, this can proliferate, create disease. And so moving your body more consistently, not living such a sedentary lifestyle, getting up, getting active, can do wonders for your mental health. So that can look as simple as taking a 30-minute walk.
Yeah, and that's happening now. When I drive through neighborhoods that are, you can tell that there's more money in that neighborhood. I see people walking their dogs, running, walking around the park, doing all kind of physical activity. When I walk into neighborhoods that are not as affluent, what I see is not that level of activity. I see a bunch of cars. I be like a lot of unkept yards. I see people just sitting on the front porch, right? Which is nothing wrong with that. But I don't see the physical activity. And one of the things that's interesting, again, I'll tell you something about my childhood. We weren't wealthy at all. Like I told you, my father had to work 2 jobs. And then I know for our Christmas every year, he would get collection notices because he would pay for our big Christmases, but not have the money for it, right? So he didn't really practice sound money management, but he was providing the best he could for us. But one of the things my mother did, we're in like High Park District, right next to this Rolling 60s neighborhood Crips, right?
Mm-hmm.
She came up with the Madden Avenue Athletic Club. So we would, on the front line, do push-ups and sit-ups with all the kids, right? And she would be out there doing her stuff. Then we did relay races. So it doesn't matter what environment you're in, you can always move, right? Always work out. So what I'm hearing is physical, take care of yourself physically, move, get rest, journal.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm with you. When I was young, I used to journal a lot. Nowadays, you can speak it. That's so much easier.
Yeah.
Being presently aware. Your physical environment is important, and then do a mental check-in. I like your questions like, what am I feeling right now? How do I feel from 1 to 10? What level of stress do I have in my body? Like being aware of that. Who is my support system? So we might find that there's not that much support that you've got.
Right.
So I would say tap into the Empower series.
Absolutely.
And then your environment. I think right now, when I look at my environment, times when I've been up and down, my environment is truly a reflection of what's going on in my mind. And right now, my environment is not as and I was going to say it's a mess. But
well, yeah, and I was going to say too, when environment, not even just the physical space, but what are you taking in from like socials, right?
Oh,
that's another environment, right? Like, so my social environment can be, again, all the stuff I'm taking in from the news. The news cycle is a lot for a lot of people. There's always something happening in the world. Social media is a lot. What kind of conversations I'm being privy to, what kind of entertainment I'm ingesting, because all of it is some form of edutainment. It's some form of messaging programming that we're dealing with. So sometimes you might need to clear your space from watching certain stuff. If all you do is watch things that make you feel less about yourself, like, man, like my life could look like that and it's nothing like that, then you're going to lead yourself to feeling like lower and lower and lower. So maybe we need to take a break from watching, that show or this thing that's making you feel like really bad right now.
Whatever we're taking in through our eyes, through our ears.
Absolutely. Your gates is what I call them.
The people we associate with.
We associate with. Yeah.
So one of the things is this, man. In January, we always talk about goal setting.
Yeah.
We talk about visualization as well. So this year, we kind of put ourselves 3 years in the future. Like we really let ourselves dream. Like what does 3 years in the future look like to us? What kind of home? Who are the people around us? What kind of job? How are we physically? Where do we want to be 3 years from now? And then we kind of just sat with that for a little bit. And then we went back and said, okay, if that's where our end game is, what should we do today to take that first step in that direction? And we came up with a list of goals and measurable goals. And one thing in life is that what drives people? Like a lot of times, if you don't have measurable goals that you're working towards, you're going to, by default, just drift. And I say that we are taught that in a very young age. Look at school. School is like, you got to go to class. You wake up in the morning, you go to school, you go through a curriculum, you go home, right? You do your homework. And then when you do that, you progress to the first, second, third grade. And so from that standpoint, those goals are set upon us. But personally, what are our goals? So I'm bringing that up to tee up the question of what, in your counseling, in your practice, how much do you say, well, let's identify some goals. So whether it's mental goals or whatever it is, but help with setting realistic goals, meaningful goals, and then seeing them make the progress to improve their, limiting thoughts or their self-doubt.
Absolutely. That's foundational to my practice.
Okay,
and
talk about that.
Just going back to mentioning the solution-focused approach to therapy, being focused on desired outcomes. That's another way of saying goals. But desired outcomes just gives it more of a robust kind of feel, right, when you say it that way. What is my desired outcome in all of this beyond just this benchmark here? Maybe it's a lifelong goal that has to do with 30 years down the road. That could be a desired outcome. But then you have these shorter term, like you said, steps, goals that get me to this longer term outcome that I'm looking for in my life. And so that's foundational to the process of me doing intake with any client. Is like, what's your desired outcome in coming here? What do you want out of this process? Because what I'm trying to relate to them is I'm not going to do all the work.
Right.
We're going to kind of, I'm going to kind of help co-facilitate, come alongside, be that cheerleader, give recommendations, things like that along the way. But you're gonna this is your life, and so you're gonna be responsible for a lot of this. And of course, there are clients that may have higher level issues that may not be that black and white, and so we have to work through kind of unraveling some things and kind of making sense of things more. But by and large, like when it comes to goal setting, that's really integral to my practice.
So here's what I want. As you talked about, what's the desired outcome?
Mm-hmm.
So I think about what is the desired outcome of the Empower series?
Mm-hmm.
What's the desired outcome of this podcast? So when I think about that, here's my desired outcome. Number one, I want to put something positive out there in the universe, right? So the mission of the Empower series is to positively impact the world by inspiring people to thrive in every area of their life. And so that might sound like high in the sky, but here's what it really is about. Thriving is, in my opinion, is not arriving at a place that you've desired to be. It's the journey of it. And so if you've decided on your own that this is what I want to do this, whether it's to be an athlete, to be a professional, to be a teacher, to be a homemaker, to be a father, to be the best son or daughter, or whatever that might be, if you've decided that on your own and you are now taking steps progressively to achieve there, then you're thriving. No, you don't have to wait to thrive to the very beginning, to the very end, right? So the second thing is, so I want people to have hope that whatever they envision, they can achieve it. I want them to be willing to take action. Like you said, you can't do the work, right? We can talk all day, but at the end of the day, when this is over with, they got to do the work. So I want to inspire people to take action, to act on their ideas in a consistent, disciplined manner. We're educating them about some things here. But more importantly, connect to resources, because you can't do it alone.
No.
You cannot do it alone. You I can't do the Empower series alone. Without AE Media Group, without people donating, without the volunteers, without the people speaking, without you being here, right?
Right.
And so we're all in this boat together. And as I laid out some of my challenges, the other message I want to convey is this. I never want to use myself as an example of success or not success, because there are people doing things much greater than me. There are people doing that I can help. But at the end of the day, no matter where you are on that spectrum, you can always help somebody. You can always inspire somebody. You can always give somebody a helping hand. And that's all around us, man. So I just want to, so the desired outcome of this is that those are my desired outcomes. So now I want to ask you, what's your desired outcome of this podcast?
My desired outcome for this podcast is, I love the name Empower, right? And that's what I come to do. Like, I want to empower anyone to really take ownership of their mental health journey. This is their life. And I understand that for many people, it's more complex, right? So seeking the help, getting the resources, going, maybe even getting an intervention for that family member that is in crisis, right? We're all on different ends of the spectrum when it comes to our mental health. And my desired outcome is to empower that process of taking the next step, right? That's my call to action. So anytime that I sit down on a podcast or have a discussion about mental health advocacy in some way, it's the call to action to go get into action for your own life, right? Like, go and get into motion for what you want to see change in your existence, bringing awareness, right? Maybe before the podcast started, they were unaware they had an issue. Then by the end of it, it's like, oh, a light bulb comes on. Right. So empowering you to bring awareness to your own situation. And just to know that there is help and support out there for you to be able to do things in a way that will be holistic for your well-being and your journey of mental health.
Man, I just tell you that Dr. George Fraser said, what's a relationship? A relationship is when someone comes into your life and they do one of four things: either add, subtract, divide, or multiply. Right? And it's interesting how much time we spend with people who subtract from our lives and create division. But spending time with people who add to your life and you add to theirs, and through that comes multiplication, I think our relationship is an example of that, Brett.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree.
All of the stuff that we've done, all of the podcasts we've done, the workshop that we did.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
It's like all of this work is not just about you and I. It's about adding to each other's lives in a way that has a multiplication effect that blesses other people. I got another question here from my producer. Dopamine is crucial in the day-to-day. Is crucial in day-to-day nowadays. What are things people can do to ensure their happy hormones are steady enough to carry them to better outcomes.
So like dopamine hacks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, unless you're someone that may be dealing with some level of like ADHD, which for a lot of people that deal with ADHD, they may have a lack of dopamine, or dopamine receptors are dull in some way. So they become dopamine like heavy. They emphasize, I want to call them junkies, but like they really want that next high. So they may turn to substance, or they may turn to other behaviors that may be maladaptive in some way to kind of keep that dopamine coming. But if you're not dealing with something of that nature, and you might need medical assistance in that case, I would say going outside, sunlight, a proper nutrition, exercise, moving the body, balancing of your hormones through those activities will give you the right amount of dopamine. But then also knowing that it has to be the kind of dopamine, like we can get dopamine from a lot of different things. It's a pleasure. It's like a pleasure seeking kind of chemical. You can get that from drinking. You can get that from smoking. Like, but these are predictors for, disease. These are things that will lead to
having dopamine or what?
No. I'm saying if you start using substances to get that like dopamine, alcohol, it's maladaptive, right? So it's going to lead to negative health outcomes for you. And so we want to not get our dopamine from activities like that. You can get it from sugar. Sugar is legal, and it's like crack, right?
You get it from the big gulp. Like 7-Eleven, it's like you need all that?
Right. So like all dopamine isn't created equal, where you're getting it from.
Okay.
So I'm saying don't do things that will lead to negative health outcomes to get that. Do things that lead to positive health outcomes.
Right,
so proper nutrition, proper relationships, exercise.
I just wrote that down. Relationships, like that can create some dopamine and create the opposite effect,
right. Yeah. Proper sleep. All of those things are helpful in getting the right amount of the happy chemicals. But I emphasize going outside. I emphasize wellness in being out in nature. As probably
like taking off your shoes and walking in grass.
The grounding, grounding your feet on the earth, absolutely. Pulling away from all the technology, pulling away from all of the indoor settings, getting out by a body of water is really good for the body. Like just go sit by a lake, go to the beach or wherever, right?
So let's
nature sounds.
Let's break these down because I don't really think about that. I don't think about what can I do to create more dopamine, right? I don't think about that stuff.
I think we're thinking too hard about it because as humans, we have become divorced from things that helped us just be in balance as a species since the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Like birds don't go around thinking about how am I getting enough dopamine today? Like they're just in a symbiotic relationship with all that's around them, with nature, right? That's probably one of the biggest things. If we would just get back in harmony with nature, like spending more time outdoors, spending more time going to parks, doing more naturally healthy things, we will have those chemicals. It'll be a healthier balance. That's just I don't want to oversimplify it, but in a lot of ways, it is that simple. It is that simple, yeah.
So the thing, like there's some bad things like drinking, overeating.
Absolutely.
I don't want to.
Not prioritizing your sleep is huge.
Sex with the wrong person.
Sex with the wrong person, right?
Relationships with the wrong
partners,
people.
Yeah.
So all of those things can be detrimental to you. But when you look at what you have control over is getting out in nature, right? Going to the park, walking.
Moving your body,
taking off your shoes, and walking in the grass, or sitting down, and some level of meditation, some level of working out, some level of moving your body. Those are all things that we don't do enough of, and we find that we have a deficiency in vitamin D, which is a part of that, right?
Absolutely, vitamin D. Yeah,
but those are
you
things
can get that from the sun.
Right, exactly. So those are all things that I think are within our reach, and so I want to leave people with a sense of empowerment.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And man, it's like when I think about our conversation, like we can talk for 2 hours. Right?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been great.
I want to do a couple of things. If people want to get in touch with you, right? How do they get in touch with you?
Okay. So I'm going to run down through my contact information first, which is my direct business line is 214-509-8383. If you want to call or even text for a consultation, you can let me know there. My email address is Karlos Wait, is it Karlos at thedaviscounselingcenter.com?
Spell Karlos, though.
Yeah, Karlos with a K.
Yeah.
So it's Karlos, and then it's at thedaviscounselingcenter.com.
And all of that will be links underneath the video. But if people are just listening to it,
Yeah. And then outside of just those are my direct lines. If you go to my Psychology Today profile, you look up Karlos, Karlos, Lyons, Lyons. I'm on there, my profile, all the information about me. The contact information I just shared with you will be linked there as well. You can call and set up a consultation or email me, set up a consultation that way. I also have social media. So I'm on social media, specifically Instagram, at Mr. So Mr. Lyons, Lyons. It's kind of I use my socials for content creation related to mental health and other things, but I'm on there as well.
So I think it's interesting, man. Thank you for providing us with your contact information. So resources like the organizations that provide resources for people who are dealing with mental health issues in general at a sliding scale are going to be all available underneath the video. One of the things I want to talk about is that I think it's interesting that finding out that you're not alone gives people a sense of some kind of comfort. And so we are all trying to figure out how to make it through this world, life in it, right? Dealing with life. And so there are times where things go well. There are things when things don't go well, right? But you're not alone.
No.
Right?
No.
And there's resources that can help you.
Absolutely.
So never give up hope. My
Absolutely.
brother said when he talked about his journey through homelessness and his recovery, he said, whatever you do, don't give up hope.
Yeah, exactly.
And I hope that we have given hope to people who are watching us today. You give me hope, my brother.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love what you do, man. I love the energy that you bring. I love you haven't been on the podcast. I got to bring you back to talk about more because there can never be enough conversations about this. And there's always somebody out there who is like stuck.
Yeah.
There's times where there's areas in my life where I'm stuck.
Right.
And you have inspired me to get unstuck, to take some action.
And kudos to you and the work you're doing here with the Empower series, because I've had people reach out to me and say they found me through watching one of these videos.
Let me tell you something, dog. That is really interesting. I saw a video of Napoleon Hill, like back in the 30s, right? And I'm thinking, man, this is back in the 30s. He's like making recordings. Like, did he even think that people in our generation would be watching his stuff? And so he made a comment that what he was doing is going to affect generations that don't exist now.
Right.
And the fact that I've partnered with AE Media Group and they have helped us, I could say, look good on social media. I just feel that everybody's creating a body of work. Most of people's bodies of work are like personal. Like my father's body of work was personal. My mother's bodies of work was personal, to where there are people who were touched by her life, and we all do that. But the fact that we're recording these podcasts and we're having this conversation, there are going to be people watching this long after we're gone that's being empowered.
Wow.
And there's just, I don't have the words to express what that means to me. My appreciation for you, for A&E Media Group, for Jose, Edward, everybody on the team that's making this happen, because we're creating a body of work that's going to benefit people long in the future.
Yeah, after we're gone. And that's great. Impact, legacy.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Hey, man. So again, any last comments before I say my goodbyes or my see you later?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate again that there is hope. There is help. We are living in some crazy times right now. And so, seeking the help to get what you need is important in these times. But then also, hey, it may mean you might have to do a social media detox, a digital detox of some sort, just so you can get your peace of mind back. Sometimes it's that simple.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, we dropped some good knowledge here, man, like being presently aware, slowing down, waking up and breathing, right? And stretching, asking ourselves some check-in questions, like how do we feel today? Who's that support group? Where's the tension coming up in our body? What's our environment like? journaling, getting some good sleep, physical activity, getting out in the universe, in the world, and just enjoying nature,
all
and
that.
saying, "Hey, thank you,
Thank
God.
you. Yeah,
Thank you,
yeah,
God."
yeah.
So my goal is to this video should go viral.
I would love it to go
Honestly,
viral.
It should
I
just
would
go
love
viral,
it.
man,
I would
because
love it.
this is some good stuff out there. There's nothing that we're trying to get from this, but we're just giving.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I want to thank you for tuning in, staying tuned in. If you want to stay connected with the Empower Series, definitely email me at thrive@empowerseries.com. Let me know how we can be of greater service to you. If you want to go to our website, go to www.empowerseries.com. In the top right-hand corner, you can click on a survey and let us know how we're doing, how we can be better. If you want to donate, you can click on the donate button in the top left-hand corner. You can also see what's coming up next, because we do workshops on the third Saturday of every month here in Dallas, but it's live streamed, so we're global. But I would also encourage you to get what you're supposed to get from the Empower Series. You didn't come by this podcast by accident. There's a reason. So take note, get what you're supposed to get, share it with somebody else so that the people in your circle can be blessed by what we're doing. Also, let us know how we're doing. Let us know, because we don't know. We can't go for grants and let people know the impact of what we're doing. And then after you get those three things, then I would say if you want to give, you can text give or donate to 214-225-6337, 214-225-6337. Text give or donate. You'll get a secured link where you can also make a donation, and just stay connected with the Empower Series. That's all you got to do, right? Stay connected. Until we meet again, I want you to be empowered and inspired to thrive.